Good afternoon. My name is Kelly McMahon, and I'm an elementary teacher in Cedar Rapids at Hoover Elementary School, and I'm a member of the Iowa State Education Association. Thank you for being here, for taking the time to hear us today. We have an important message to share in light of the opening of the legislative session. We are here to put a personal face on all of our unions. We are made up of individuals who work in professions that impact our communities in a positive and important ways. Many of us chose our professions because we wanted to help people. None of us chose our professions because we thought we would get rich. You will hear all of us talk about how politicians who make our unions and our professions targets for political attacks and want to cut budgets on our backs to do so at the peril of the safety and well-being of our citizens of the state. When you cut the benefits and salaries of the police force, you won't get many interested in applying for the jobs. Unfortunately, one of our scheduled speakers is unable to join us today. That's from a local police department because he was assaulted and hospitalized on the job yesterday. When you cut the funding for schools, our public schools cannot attract the best in the field to work in those schools. When you tell nurses and snowplow drivers and firefighters that they are not important and are fodder in the political attacks, you're telling us that our work in our communities, keeping families and others safe, is not important. Please listen to our stories today, and then write your own stories about why the legislature wants to solve budget issues on the backs of the very professionals who are keeping our communities safe, vibrant, and healthy. My fellow Iowa State Education Association members and I work tirelessly every single year to ensure that we have strong public schools across this great state. We are the bus drivers who transport your children safely to and from school, the paraprofessionals who assist children with autism in the classroom, the school nurses who assist children with insulin shots and tummy aches, the teachers who direct the fall musicals, and the coaches that lead the football teams onto the field for the big Friday night games. The members of my professional association take great pride in the work that we do on your behalf because we understand that strong public schools make up the heart and the souls of the communities that we work in each day. ISA members understand that you place a great amount of trust and responsibility in our hands every day your child enters our classrooms. As a kindergarten teacher, I'm entrusted with the daily care of our youngest learners. I learned early in my teaching career that it is important for parents to trust that their teachers will be there to help their child adjust to major life changes. Years ago, on an early morning, before my students entered my classroom, a crying mother came in to ask that I look after her children while she was in jail. The relationships I then grew and fostered with this mother over the next several years gave her the sense of comfort that her children would have a caring adult looking after them while she was away. A few years ago, the same mother contacted me to let me know that her child, that same child who was in my classroom as a kindergartner, was graduating from high school as a valedictorian. Mom just wanted to thank me for believing in her child and always taking the time to help her and her children through their journey. The time that ISA members devote to our students and families extend way beyond the walls of our buildings and the hours of our school day. Students and parents contact us during the evenings or early mornings to ask questions about homework, school activities, or to share concerns. ISA members attend school and community activities to support our students outside of our classrooms. Like many members across the state, I can be found leading a weekly after-school club for students in grades 3 through 5. Parents will find me sitting in the stands cheering on Hoover students at soccer and basketball games. I can be found attending after-school activities sponsored by our Boys and Girls Club, making home visits, attending church services, and citizen naturalization ceremonies for parents. When new refugee families have relocated to our neighborhood, I have assisted them with registering their children for school, driving them around Cedar Rapids to show them where their older children would attend school, as well as providing transportation to doctors and IEP meetings for their children. ISA members do not walk away from our responsibilities to the communities in which we work and live. And when tragedy or disaster occurs, you can find our members there as well. Our members get tested to donate bone marrow or kidneys in hopes of helping an ailing child. Our members have organized fundraisers to help students that have been stricken with cancer. For when times of fire or displacement, our members organize clothing and food drives to help families get back on their feet. For the students at Hoover Elementary School, this means beds and furniture for living rooms so that students and their families have a place to sleep, sit, and do homework. To one child, it meant becoming a part of an ISA member's family after he lost his father and his mother was critically injured in a car accident on their way to work. So as the 2017 legislative session begins, please remember who the ISA members are that work on your behalf in your communities across the state to make sure that your child grows up in a community with vibrant community with strong public schools. On behalf of the members of Iowa State Education Association, I want to thank you for allowing us to be a part of your families and communities.
My name is Adam Cho, and I'm a police officer here in the Metro, and I've been in law enforcement for 10 years. Every day when a police officer puts on their uniform and their badge and they set out to do their job, it's a calling. They know what the job is in front of them, they know what the risks are, but they don't hesitate on taking that risk because of the profession we chose. It's not a job for us, it's something we chose to do. I'm a third generation law enforcement officer, and I chose to do this at a very young age. This job isn't for everybody. We have growing concerns as a law enforcement professional in the community and as police officers in the state. Our retention is getting more and more difficult. People that become educated in criminal justice in this field, they do the job for a couple years, and a lot of times they go into the private sector because they just don't want to deal with the types of things that we have to do, the things that we have to encounter, the tough things that we have to see. For me, that was something that I set out to do. I wanted to make a change in my community. I work in a school. I'm a police officer that works with children. Unfortunately, some members of our legislature have proposed changes with workers' rights and public standards for public servants, which compounds recruitment issues and retention problems. Retention problems that we already face, and it's going to get worse. Most of these changes are told that it's going to be cost effective and more efficient, but that means something very different for us. For us, it means we're no longer going to have a voice in things that are important like health care, salaries, conduct, professional standards for the industry, training, equipment, and safety concerns in the job. These are things that we feel is important. If we don't have appropriate manpower to deal with the issues like opiate addiction and other serious issues, we will have less time for officers to respond for calls for service. That means the general public is going to be waiting 2 and 3 hours for an officer to show up to handle the small things. We need to keep our officers in those cars. Eroding our voices on the job and cutting the profession will have a drain for the Iowa police officers, just like it has in other states around us that chose to cut the voice that the police officers have in their profession. The bargaining laws in Iowa were set up 40 years ago by both parties, and they work well at keeping personnel quick at the scene, effective in keeping neighborhoods safe and secure. We should try not to fix what is not broken. We serve our communities every day, but we need to protect those who serve and protect. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Pasick. I'm in my 18th year as a transportation worker, and I'm a proud member of AFSCME, the American Federation of County and Municipal Employees. I am proud of the work I do because my job makes it possible for my fellow employees standing up here with me to do theirs. Our state's first responders rely on clear state roads in an emergency, as do all Iowans getting from point A to point B this time of year. In addition to the winter maintenance activities, our members guarantee that Iowa roads and bridges are built to specification and ensure the safety of the traveling public. When I started my job 18 years ago, there were 4 times as many employees in my office as there are today. As a result of reductions in staff and more roads to maintain, we have all quadrupled our duties to make sure the job gets done. Sure, I could make more money and do less work for a private sector contractor, but I take pride in being a public employee. This job is personal to me, and Iowa's ever-changing infrastructure comes with a cost. During the reconstruction of I-235, 2 of my coworkers paid that ultimate price when they were killed on the job. I think of them often, especially at times like these, when I'm telling others about the work that we do. Before doing this job, I took for granted how the roads I traveled every day got cleared in the harsh Iowa winters and how transportation infrastructure remains safe for me and my family. As we head into legislative session next week, please remember who the AFSCME members are that work on your behalf to make Iowa happen.
I'm a professional firefighter here in Des Moines. I represent the Iowa Professional Firefighters. Getting back to the conversation here, we talk about public safety, public employees. Each one of these people that have spoken before me and will speak after me is important to me. When we respond to a call on 235, those snowplow drivers are very important to us because they block traffic for us. They make sure that when we're out there, we're safe. But with that being said, Adam brought up Chapter 20. It was enacted 40 years ago by a Republican governor. It was put into place for three main purposes: to promote the voluntary negotiation of collective bargaining agreements between the public sector employees and workers, provide an orderly method for resolving bargaining disputes in those cases where parties cannot agree voluntarily, and prevent strikes by public employees. And since that day, there's not been a strike by public employees. So we go back to the point where the Des Moines firefighters, the Iowa professional firefighters, we've all faced our budget cuts in the last few years, Des Moines especially. But at some point, we need to ask our legislators, when is doing more with less enough? We've done more with less over the last few years, and we continue to do that, and now they're saying, you know, there's a shortfall, and this group of people up here are the ones that are going to have to cover it. When do we step down and tell our legislators enough is enough? We're not going to do less with more, or more with less, excuse me.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Sama Khan. I am a registered nurse who has been providing quality health care to those in this community right here in Des Moines for over 30 years. Growing up in Laos as a young girl, I too often witnessed members of my own community suffering and dying because they lacked adequate health care services. Because of my childhood experiences, I developed a strong desire to work in health care and to advocate for those who are most vulnerable in our communities. That's why working at Broadlands Medical Center for many years was so important to me. I've always been and will always be strong and outspoken advocate for the underserved in our communities. I want to share an experience in my nursing career with you that sticks with me to this very day. I was helping to care for a young child whose family had recently arrived in the United States. The boy had been admitted for suspicious bruising on his body. I learned that the family was rather under scrutiny for possible child abuse. Knowing the family spoke very limited English, I served as an interpreter in talking with the parents and learned how shocked and devastated they were to find out that they were being investigated for hurting their own child. They also told me that they too had been noticing that this child has been getting bruising, even bumping into furniture. So I encouraged the medical team to wait and consider working the child up for more medical diagnosis before accusing them of abusing their own child. Ultimately, the child was diagnosed with hemophilia and treatment was initiated. Anyone who has ever had struggle with an illness themselves or their family knows that Iowa's registered nurses work hard to ensure our patients and our communities are healthy and receive the highest quality of care possible. I didn't become a nurse to get rich. I became a nurse to serve my patients, my community, my city, and my state. Caring for Iowans continue to give my work a meaning, like working with a lady named Charlotte, a patient that I cared for several years ago while working at Broadlands Medical Center. Charlotte had a very bad form of lung cancer and knew she wouldn't recover. She had no family support and had very few resources. When my shift ended on 3/11, I decided to spend the time with Charlotte into the late evening, just holding her hands and talking with her. I wasn't there when she passed away the next day, but I knew in my heart my presence comforted her when she needed it the most. That's what nurses does every day. But now I worry more about my patients every day. It's getting harder and harder to hire and keep qualified nurses, registered nurses in our state. It's long been a fact that Iowa's nurses provide top-notch care. But we also hold the sad distinction of being some of the lowest paid nurses in the nation, second to last, besides Puerto Rico is the last. Not only is this embarrassing, more importantly, it's becoming a major health problem. Because right now, Iowa hospitals are leaving a difficult time or having a difficult time hiring and keeping enough qualified nurses. That's why I'm here today, because along with these everyday heroes standing right next to me, I am extremely concerned that Iowa legislation is planning to enact significant changes in Iowa law that will have even more devastating consequences to our patients and our communities. When our hospitals are understaffed and more of our experienced nurses are recruited away to other states so that they can have better earnings to support their families, Iowa patients are put at risk. In nursing, we have a saying, our working conditions are our patients' healing conditions. Think about that. Our working conditions are our patients' healing conditions. So you can see that any changes in the law that affect the nurses' working conditions will also directly our care that of Iowans, my patients, will receive. Not only would any change in the law be bad for Iowans nurses, it would hurt Iowans who need and deserve quality health care. So today, I'm calling on our governor and the 2017 legislations, keep your hands out changing any laws that will ultimately hurt Iowans' education and our health and well-being by hurting everybody and all the heroes like us. Thank you for your attendance today.
Changes that have been floated in Chapter 20, what has you the most concerned?
As an educator, while I was attending the University of Northern Iowa, I was told that one of my greatest responsibilities is to be an advocate for my students. And with changes to Chapter 20, I do fear that the ability for me to be a voice to make sure that my students are getting the quality education and all students across the state of Iowa receive the great schools that they deserve, that's at risk. If I'm not able to advocate for my students publicly without fear of retaliation, what does that mean for my students? When their class size is too small, when we are over-assessing our students, when we have bad legislation already in place that goes against everything that research has to say with the third grade mandatory retention, despite the fact that we don't fund our summer school programs. I need to be a voice for my students and their families.
I would have to say that there have been other states that have taken out these rights that law enforcement officers in my field have with how training, wages, health care is handled within their department. And those states that lost that, they have lower pay. They're paying a lot more for their health care insurance for themselves and their families. They have no voice in their standards and their training, and they leave. They leave to go to other states and other jurisdictions where they can find those laws that help protect them. Iowa, fortunately, has a good program. It's a great program. When you apply for other states to be a police officer and they see you're from the Midwest, they take you because we have a good work ethic. We have good trained police officers. We have the top-notch cops because we get paid decently. We don't get rich. We have to work extra long hours, but we are able to take care of our families. I think this would be a hindrance.
Just like to add, since Adam shared about what has happened in other states, states have enacted changes to their laws and have put working conditions that have been hindrance the learning conditions of our students, such as Wisconsin and Kansas and Oklahoma. They're seeing teacher shortages. They cannot hire enough teachers to teach the children of those states. Our children are the future of the state of Iowa, and we need to make sure that they have high-quality, strong public schools in every single community across the state in order to keep Iowa a vibrant state that people want to live in.
Also add that being a nurse, we're currently working at a private hospital and has worked at public hospital for over 20 years, we're always short-staffed. We just cannot keep enough nurses in the state of Iowa. You know, I mean, I'm hoping the legislations and the governor would look into what we can do to at least help keeping the public health workers in the state of Iowa. They get a great education and they leave because other states offer a better package of benefits and also better salary than us. So, and also, we have one hospital that is unionized at this point, but being in a part of those union nurses. I understand how difficult it is because people are afraid to raise their voice because they're afraid of retaliation or to get fired. And most of them want to be a part of the union, but they're scared. So, you know, any change of laws is going to increase the risk of public safety and public health in the hospital.
With no further questions, I would just like to say, oh, sorry.
It appears that legislators might speed through some sort of bill. What reaction would you expect in this building from among your colleagues in your respective unions?
Without knowing exactly what that legislation is going to look like, we can't say. We can only know what we've seen in other states and what we can possibly expect to be coming. And until we know for sure, none of us can speak as to how our members would respond and feel. If there are no further questions, I would like to thank you again on behalf of all of our union members that are here with us today and across the state of Iowa for coming to join us today and listening to our voices and supporting the great work that we do on behalf of these communities that we live and work in for the state of Iowa. Thank you and have a good day.